Welcome to Montana After Hours. My name is Michael Marsolek. This is a program that airs every 2 weeks on Missoula Community Access Television. And we talk about topics and information and have conversation about things that may be important to Missoulians. And this is another installment of the series. I'll have quite a few new programs over the course of the summer, and hopefully you'll be seeing a lot of different subjects that are of interest to Missoulians and of interest to people in western Montana. I'll give out the address at the end of the program. I wanted to mention right off the bat that I'm very much open for people with ideas, guest suggestions, and comments and suggestions for this show. And be sure to drop a postcard in the mail or a letter at the end of the show to the address that you'll see on the screen, and I'd be happy to hear from you. Thanks for joining us today. And joining me here is Mike Cohan. Mike is the president of the Missoula Valley Improvement Association. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you.
Now, I think we need to start out by maybe talking a little bit about what the Missoula Valley Improvement Association is, kind of how it was formed, and what is this group all about?
Our primary concern is the air quality in the Missoula Valley. We're a citizens organization that wants to achieve cleaner and healthier air in the Missoula Valley, and our goal is public education and working with the county government to make improvements. We started originally as the media campaign against Ross. You all probably remember the incinerator here some months ago. As a result of that campaign, a group of us discovered that we worked well together, and we realized that everyone in Missoula Valley complains about the air. We leave our houses in the morning to go to work and look around us, and we smell it, and we mutter under our breath, but nobody was really actively working to improve the situation. And having this organization and some talented and energetic people left from the media campaign against Ross, we decided that we would continue to devote ourselves to working on Missoula's airshed.
Great. We'll hear more about some of the federally mandated things that Missoula has to comply with as far as from the Clean Air Act and from the EPA now with our air being so bad for so long and with so many violations over a period of time. We're forced now by federal mandate to deal with our air, and that's something that your group is also concerned about, or at least wants to have the Missoula area know about some of the options and some of the things that we have to talk about. What are some of the things that you're working on and that you'd like to see happen in the short term, or perhaps even in the longer term for the Missoula Valley?
Well, the long term, obviously, is that I would like to be able to step out of my house and see the sun every morning. In the short term, in order to achieve that, we're hoping to work with county government on the oxy-fuels plan, which you alluded to, the federal regulations that we must comply with very shortly. We're also hoping to support various other groups in the Missoula Valley who are doing things positive toward clean air. For instance, we want to support and work with the non-motorized vehicle plan. We feel that the people in Missoula County who are using bicycles and other forms of non-motorized transportation are making a contribution to the community. We would like to support that, increase it. We're also concerned about safety. Some other issues that we're concerned about are the wood stoves, which contribute approximately 27% of our carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide pollution during the winter time. And we're very concerned about the automobile pollution in the valley. As our population here increases, we're getting more and more automobile pollution, and not having vehicle inspections in the state of Montana. We also have an aging vehicle fleet that is highly polluting compared to the automotive fleet of other cities. Of course, you know, we've been named one of the 41 non-compliance cities in the country, And what that tells us is that we have essentially been caught with our pants down and that we have not been doing a good job of long-range planning for the growth and vehicular traffic in the valley. Now we're in a situation where we have to come up with some short-term solutions to what we feel will be a very long-term problem.
Mm-hmm. One thing that with the federal mandate, it's allowed up for the the $30 million earmarked for Missoula. How does that come into play? And also, as far as our violations, most of them occurred at Malfunction Junction, but we all who live in Missoula know that this is not just a problem that occurs at Malfunction Junction with carbon monoxide that you can't even see. And we obviously have a big air quality problem year-round that goes much beyond what was our main violations, which was carbon monoxide at our monitoring station at Malfunction Junction. But so how does that $30 million come into play to, as far as the concerns that you have, and also what are what is the long-term or even the short-term goal that goes beyond those federal mandates?
Well, the $30 million that has been appropriated by the federal government for Missoula, as I understand it, is to be used for the alleviation of traffic congestion. And the operant theory there is that if you relieve that congestion, there will be fewer vehicles sitting at idle, which is the most polluting time for an automobile. I believe that the majority of that money is to be used for construction projects, perhaps new roads, bypasses, something to try to deal with the congestion, the increasing congestion at Malfunction Junction. Interestingly, the monitoring station that is now set up at Malfunction Junction, the one which provided the federal government with the data that got us in trouble, is really only an indication of the air pollution in the Missoula Valley. It is the worst case, but people fail to understand that if the pollutants are being generated there at that spot, they are spreading around the valley. So we're monitoring the worst spot in the valley, which gives us some indication of how bad it is in other places.
Let's talk a little bit about oxygenated fuels and the federal mandate that has come into play now that we're required, are we not? Well, can you explain that a little bit? We're required to use oxygenated fuels during the winter months beginning this winter.
Yes.
As far as I understand it. And it's there's a minimum percentage and perhaps a maximum percentage in the amount of additives can be added or should be added to the gasoline. But there are some variables involved, and that's one of the other things that your group is concerned about, right?
What has happened here because of our pollution in the Missoula Valley, the federal government has said that we must begin an oxygenated fuels program in an attempt to reduce carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide automotive pollution in the valley. This is a federal blackmail. What will happen is that if we fail to comply or refuse to comply, and that is an option, although not a very good one, the federal government will simply cut all of the funding that we receive here in Missoula County, our highway funding. They could even be so nasty as to cut AFDC and other programs if they wanted to. Of course, something like that would be devastating to our government and its ability to provide services for the people here. And within a very short time, Missoula County government would find itself bankrupt without these federal funds. So essentially, we must comply with these regulations. What we have to achieve is an oxygenation of the fuels sold in the Missoula Valley of 2.7%. And there are various additives that can be put in the gasoline to achieve this. Ethanol, grain alcohol, is one of them. A product called MTBE, methyl tertiary butyl ether, will also enable us to comply with federal regulations. What has been estimated by the county health department is that if we initiate this program, we will have a slight decrease in carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide pollution that will take us down below the level required by the federal government and thereby get us off the federal hook. The concern of my organization is that, first of all, complying with minimum federal standards is a game that the county should not play. With any growth or increased traffic congestion, minimum compliance means that in a few years we will be out of compliance again, and then we will be forced to take some other action. First of all, we think that the oxygenated fuels program should be county-wide, as the proposed regulations are now written by the Missoula County Health Department. They're only looking to institute oxygenated fuels in what is called the air stagnation zone, that central part of the Missoula Valley that is the worst. We feel that by only selling oxygenated fuels in the air stagnation zone, we're not going to achieve the result that the County Health Department wants, needs, and anticipates. Missoula is a commuter town. We are the employer for the majority of the people who work in Missoula County, and by only selling oxygenated fuels within the city, this means that the folks who drive here on a daily basis will not be buying oxygenated fuels, and therefore they will continue to put out those high levels of carbon monoxide and dioxide that got us in trouble. The other consideration on the county-wide issue is that the gasoline itself is going to cost about a nickel more a gallon. This is a given. We can't help this. We're stuck with it. If we only go with the air stagnation zone, it will place a lot of our retailers of gasoline at a competitive disadvantage. People may, in order to save a nickel a gallon, want to drive a few miles beyond the air stagnation zone to fill up their tanks. And we don't feel that the county program should set anyone up to be at an economic disadvantage. So we favor it countywide. The other thing that concerns us is that the federal mandate only specifies the use of oxygenated fuels from the 1st of November till the end of February. And of course we all know that those are the bad months. However, with increasing vehicular traffic in the Missoula Valley, our bad months are going to get longer and longer, and something that's being overlooked here is the summertime pollutants, in particular ozone, which is a warm weather phenomenon, and it produces the brown haze that people in Los Angeles and Denver and other cities are so familiar with. We could begin developing brown haze here in the Missoula Valley with just very little bits of increased vehicular traffic. I think if you take a look at the valley in the early morning in the summer months, you'll see that things are quite hazy here, and that it may be as late as 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning until the haze burns off, as they say. Missoulians don't just breathe during the winter months, and we don't just breathe during those bright sunny hours from 10 a.m. until 7 p.m. We breathe year-round and day-round, and we would like to see our air cleaner year-round and day-round. So we're hoping that the county will cooperate by making this a year-round program. We also feel that being a year-round program, it will keep us out of these situations where the federal government finds us in noncompliance and forces us to do something. The last part of what my organization is proposing is that the product that's being dispensed at the gasoline pump needs to be labeled for its contents. As consumers, we feel that we have a right to know what's in the product that we're buying. Since there are two different products that may or will be used for oxygenation, and this brings us into a lot of larger issues, national and international issues. The ethanol that will comply with federal government standards is made from grain. Virtually any grain will work, and it is a domestic product. As a matter of fact, there are farms in Montana now engaged in selling grain to ethanol producers, and there is one ethanol producer here in the state already, and proposals for possibly one or several more. The methyl tertiary butyl ether, MTBE, that will also comply with federal standards is a chemical product made from coal or methane gas and is produced by the same companies who give us our gasoline. Economically, we feel that we would like to support the farmers. The oil companies are doing well enough without any more help. The farmers, I believe, could use some help. In addition to that, by using a domestic product, we will decrease our reliance on foreign oil. We feel this is a good thing for the whole country. One of the major advantages of ethanol is that the byproducts of ethanol production are useful. The grain that is left over after the distillation of the ethanol is high protein, high fiber grain. Without reprocessing, it can be used as animal feed, or if reprocessed, it can be used as human food. I've made some cookies from the leftover grain of ethanol production. It is, as far as I know, the only motor fuel that has an edible byproduct. I certainly wouldn't want to eat any of the byproducts of the manufacture of methyl tertiary butyl ether. Those byproducts are sulfuric acid, sulfonated resins, and hydrocarbon sulfates, which are hazardous wastes. So there are, although the actual production of the MTB would not be taking place here in Montana, it would create some hazardous waste problem for someone somewhere, and that's not a particularly neighborly attitude. So we're hoping that we can get the fuel pumps labeled to give us the choice. I believe the Missoula consumer will strongly favor ethanol because it is a homegrown, patriotic American product, because it pollutes less in the overall than MTBE, and because it is a superior product in the final analysis. But we must have pump labeling in order to allow the consumer to make that choice. We don't want to be in the position where the petroleum companies choose for us. And that's where the proposed rules for Missoula County now stand. They allow that choice up to the petroleum companies.
I'm talking with Mike Cohan, who's president of the Missoula Valley Improvement Association, and we're talking about oxygenated fuels. What kind of effect what do you know about the effects of having to use oxygenated fuels in our vehicles?
There is long experience with these fuels. They really got a start during the oil embargo days during the Carter administration, and there are some petroleum companies that have been dispensing oxygenated fuels for nearly 20 years. What has developed is a huge amount of data and billions of miles driven using these fuels and virtually no problems. They're going to cost about a nickel more regardless of what product is used, and for your nickel, not only are you going to get cleaner air, but you're going to get a cleaner car. Oxygenated fuels will, for instance, clean the soot and carbon deposits out of your fuel injection or carburation systems, therefore requiring less maintenance. They're going to keep your spark plugs cleaner, and they're going to keep your exhaust system in better condition. So eventually, while it may pinch your wallet at the pump, you're going to save money. The other thing is that oxygenated fuels are much higher in octane, so your vehicle is going to have more power. This means that you'll save gasoline in climbing some of the mountains around here.
Sounds like there's a lot of advantages to oxygenated fuels, and we were kind of, blindly forced into this compliance, but now we are at a crossroads where we can, make an elective decision, it seems, the people of Missoula, to not only what oxygenated fuels we want to use, but to what you're talking about, but what area of either the city or county-wide is being used, and not only that, but we have the possibility of having these fuels year-round. What effect do you think it would have to have oxygenated fuels year-round as compared to only during those 4 months?
I think the year-round effect will be obvious when you look at the hills surrounding the city. If we reduce the automotive pollution in this valley, you're going to get a much brighter picture of your surroundings, for one thing. And for another, these pollutants are not just things that we must comply with on the federal level. These pollutants are things that harm the citizens of the Missoula Valley. In particular, they are extremely harmful to children whose lungs are developing in this environment. They are harmful to the elderly, and they are especially harmful to anyone who has respiratory or cardiac diseases. And as the population ages in this country, we see more and more people who in their senior years develop these kinds of ailments. It is actually possible at times to overdose on carbon monoxide at Malfunction Junction.
Wow.
People who have been held up by the 20-odd stoplights down there at that intersection have experienced sensations of dizziness while they're sitting in their cars, and this is carbon monoxide poisoning.
Wow. That's amazing to me. We don't need to tell the people of Missoula that we had another year where we certainly didn't have a normal winter, but we had a normal, for whatever is normal, a lot of air quality alerts and a lot of problems with air pollution over the winter. I think there were 20 plus, if I recall, stage 1 air alert days in the Missoula Valley this last winter, and it was not a normal winter as far as weather-wise. Certainly the air stagnation is going to be there. One thing that immediately comes to mind for me, and I wanted to get your feedback on this, Mike, is complying with these federal standards, and perhaps, as you're suggesting, going way beyond that to impact in a real positive way the air in Missoula certainly makes sense, but I think obviously we have a problem with continued growth and looking at the number of people that drive in the Missoula Valley in general. I mean, we should really, I suppose, be talking and continuing to talk about public transportation and about other options. And what are some of the things that you're concerned about or working on as far as perhaps trying to get people to drive less or to carpool or do other things like that?
That would be great. Actually, that brings us back to that large allocation that we have received from the federal government. Some of those monies can be spent for things like mass transit, and possibly even could be spent for making it easier to commute in the Missoula Valley. We must realize that we're now one of America's small cities, and we have American small city problems here. And those problems are going to continue to increase as more and more people find the Missoula Valley an attractive and good place to be. One of the goals of this organization is to educate the public about their choices and to let them know that by using sound transportation practices at an individual level, we can all have an impact on the air quality here. We all seem to complain about it, and now we all have an opportunity to do something about it. If you look at the cars that are coming into Missoula on a daily basis, you'll find that 90% of them plus are single passenger cars. That is, the driver is the only person in the vehicle. And this is totally unnecessary. People in Montana are friendly, we're good neighbors, and there's no reason why we can't become accustomed to sharing the ride with a friend. First of all, it's going to help to clean up the air and reduce the traffic congestion. If we reduce the number of cars on the road, it will get you to work faster. And it will save you money in these times when everyone seems to be pinched and trying to find ways to save a few dollars here and there. It only makes sense to ride to work with a friend. In that vein, we're hoping to convince Missoula County to spend some of that huge allocation for park and ride. These are simply parking lots, hopefully paved so they won't generate dust, that are placed at strategic points outside the air stagnation zone that would enable people who work at the same place to meet at a convenient spot, park their car with good security and good visibility, and ride together into the air stagnation zone. Ideally, these parking lots could be connected with the mountain lion system so that we could reduce the number of cars coming into the air stagnation zone significantly every day, and this is going to help us a great deal. It will help us to stay in compliance with federal standards, keep us out of trouble, and give us a much cleaner environment here in the air stagnation zone. On Tuesday, June 9th, the Missoula City County Health Department Air Pollution Control Board held a meeting to consider Rule 1429, the oxyfuels plan. At that meeting, the board decided to make some changes to the initial plan. Those changes represent both a victory and a defeat for the health and environment of Missoula County. One thing that was achieved is that the wording for the labeling of the pumps will be changed so that we will know what product is being dispensed from the pumps. They will be labeled either oxygenated with ethanol or MTBE so that the marketplace can decide what product will ultimately be used in Missoula County. Both the citizens organizations and the petroleum retailers of the area favored broadening that to include the entire county. What compromise was reached was that the control zone, as it's now called, was expanded to the county border on the south, just slightly west of Frenchtown and just slightly east of Bonner, which gives us a much larger area and will help, I believe, a great deal, although it leaves us vulnerable to the development that is occurring in the western end of the county. It is right now the second most up-and-coming area after the Bitterroot, and by not covering that area, I feel that the county left us vulnerable there. Also, they did not go east as far as Clinton, which means that the Rock Creek commuters are not covered by the program as it now stands. I believe the compromise was reached because the county board was concerned about forcing this on the citizens of Missoula County in the extreme northeast corridor, most of whom do not commute on a regular basis to Missoula. It's unreasonable to commute from that area. And many of the folks who live up there feel that they're paying taxes and putting up with a county government that has little concern for them. And I understand how this compromise was reached. I think perhaps a better compromise could have been reached. What's going to happen now is that this will go to the state air quality people for a yes or no. They will either accept our regulations or they will reject them. There won't be any further opportunity to modify during the process. After that, those regulations will then come back to the county, at which time the county commissioners will make them law, or they could possibly reject them, which I highly doubt. Along with the petroleum distributors in the area, we're trying to raise everyone's awareness of this program, and we're also still going to try to continue to get it expanded so that all of the commuter areas of the county will be covered. The petroleum people will be getting the short end of the stick economically if this is not done, and environmentally, of course, we'll all be getting the short end of the stick. We're now hoping to forge a coalition with their organization and have them join us in the petitions that we're now circulating so that we can demonstrate to county officials that there is great popular support for this and that it's worthwhile to amend these regulations after they're adopted to give us a much better program. The possibility of year-round ethanol use was discussed, but never seriously at this meeting. And it was the position of the county health department that it would be economically unfeasible. That is, it would represent an additional economic strain on the citizens of Missoula County, notwithstanding the fact that I pointed out to them that 67% of all Americans surveyed said that they would, in fact, pay more for a product if they knew it was environmentally sound. And also notwithstanding the fact that the price of petroleum products fluctuates so greatly, as we have seen in the news recently, that the increased costs of using ethanol year-round would hardly be noticeable in an environment where the price of gasoline has increased 16 cents since last April. The county health department also felt that the air pollution from automobiles in warm weather months is not a problem, but they look at this as a regulatory agency, and indeed, based upon monitoring and the number of parts per million, it doesn't present a problem as far as the EPA is concerned. And it's my feeling that in our attempt to deal with this regulatory problem, we have overlooked the fact that it is indeed the health of Missoula County that's concerned here, and there are no acceptable parts per million of carbon monoxide. It is a poisonous gas. So while indeed it may be below regulatory standards in warm weather, is it still healthy in Missoula in the summertime? And I think the answer to that question is obviously no. If you sit idling at Malfunction Junction in your car at the inevitable red light with the windows down in the summertime, you're going to get a real good whiff of carbon monoxide. And whether those parts per million comply with EPA standards or not is irrelevant. It's hurting you. The petition that we're currently circulating asks the county government to consider expanding the area covered by the oxygenated fuels program, possibly to the entire county, but at the very least to all of the county with the exception of the northeast corridor above Clearwater Junction. We're also asking the county to reconsider oxygenated fuels as a year-round use in this community because we feel that the health of our citizens is the object here, not the EPA's regulatory numbers.
Joining me on today's program is Mike Cohan. Mike is the president of the Missoula Valley Improvement Association, and it sounds like you're working on a lot of different things that will affect not only the air quality in Missoula, but perhaps our standard of living, which we all like. I've talked to a lot of people myself in recent months, especially through the winter months, that say how much they like Missoula, how much they dislike being in Missoula in the wintertime because of the air problems. It would really be nice. We'd have an all-around, I think, fantastic place to live if we could come up with some of the solutions to some of those kind of problems. Certainly most Montanans don't want to live in a polluted environment. In fact, a lot of people have moved to this state deliberately to escape some kinds of problems like pollution, and it'd be real nice to make some strides. So you've got your work cut out for you as far as what's the next step now? You're going to talk with the county and talk with the officials and try to continue to work towards some of those goals?
We intend to continually input into the county health department and the county government to try to bring the citizens' concerns about air quality to the forefront, to get our county government to do some long-range planning rather than the stopgap solutions that we've been forced to take up until this time. We're at a crossroads now. The fact is that Missoula can develop into a shining gem in the Rockies, or it can develop into a smudge hole. We have that choice now, and we had better make it now before our choices are taken from us and our decisions are forced upon us.
Right. So if you're a Missoula citizen and you'd like to express some input and have that input heard, I suppose they can contact you. Is that the...
Yes, we can certainly use all the help we can get. This is a citizens organization. We want people to participate. That's how you get things done. So anyone who wants more information about the oxygenated fuels program or anything else concerning air quality in the Missoula Valley, please call us at 721-7379 or drop us a note, Missoula Valley Improvement Association, 502 West Alder, Missoula 59802. We'd certainly be glad to hear from people.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for being on the show. I appreciate it.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Mike Cohan is the president of the Missoula Valley Improvement Association, and thanks again for being here today. My name is Michael Marsolek, and this is Montana After Hours. If you have a guest suggestion or comment, I'd be happy to hear from you. And tune in again for another show in a couple of weeks. Thanks a lot.